Baby Brianna's mother, father, and uncle are all still in prison. And now there's a new fight over how the child who never had a chance in life is being treated in death.
Baby Brianna, just her name evokes strong emotions, and now it's her mother's name, Stephanie Lopez, that's causing a big stir on the internet around the country.
That's unfortunate. There wasn't a greater penalty that we could have charged her with.
Now almost 30,000 people from all over the country have signed an online petition asking the state to block her release, but their efforts will mean nothing.
Hello everyone, and welcome. As an experienced crime analyst and storyteller, I share real-life cases with the goal of raising awareness, enhancing safety, and helping our community learn valuable lessons for prevention. Today, we'll be exploring Brianna Lopez's case and uncovering its latest developments. She would never wake up again. Those were the chilling whispers inside a small, dimly lit mobile home on a quiet morning in Las Cruces, New Mexico. There was no need to rush to call for help. There were no desperate pleas from neighbors banging on the door, no footsteps rushing toward the hospital, just silence. A silence that would soon reveal a tragedy that had been unfolding behind closed doors for months. When emergency responders finally arrived, it was too late. They were given explanations that made absolutely no sense. The story was supposed to be an accident, but what they saw suggested something far more disturbing. In the coming days, investigators would unravel a tale of cruelty, denial, and betrayal. It was so disturbing that even seasoned officers struggled to contain their emotions. This wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. The truth was much worse. How could one household contain so many unanswered questions? And why did the evidence point to a continuous pattern of harmful behavior that no one on the outside ever noticed? The individuals who should have been Brianna's best protectors became the focus of suspicion from investigators. The family members who should have been the safest people for the child became the focus of an increasingly cruel reality. We're about to tell you about a case that forever changed New Mexico's child protection laws. A case that still resonates as a stark reminder of the dangers that lie ahead. If you're new here, take a moment to subscribe and let us know where and when you're watching in the comments. We are building a community that refuses to be silent so that the lives of children like Brianna Lopez are never forgotten. And we are truly grateful that together we can raise awareness and push for change in cases like this, no matter how small. Brianna Lopez was born on February 14, 2002, in Las Cruces, New Mexico. She was born on Valentine's Day, a day that should symbolize love and warmth. However, the circumstances of her short life were the complete opposite of that ideal. She lived in a small, mobile home with several members of her family. Her mother, Stephanie Lopez, her father, Andrew Walters, her uncle, Stephen Lopez, her grandmother, Patricia Walters, her 18-month-old brother, Andy Jr., and her youngest uncle, who was only 8 years old. This was a large family. Yet to outsiders, the house seemed unremarkable, even invisible. To neighbors and the community at large, there were no obvious warning signs from the outside. No one suspected anything was amiss inside the house. Brianna was rarely, if ever, seen outside. Unlike most newborns who regularly visited the doctor, went for walks around the neighborhood, or had family gatherings, she was rarely seen outside her immediate family. Even occasional glimpses from neighbors were almost non-existent. This lack of transparency extended to social services as well. Without outside observation, teachers, health professionals, or community members had little chance of recognizing concerns or intervening. For a child so young and dependent, his entire life was confined within the four walls of that mobile home, surrounded only by the people he lived with. The people in the house, his parents, uncle, and grandmother, were the ones responsible for taking care of him. To the outside world, they were simply family members raising a child. There were no public indicators that anything was wrong. But in hindsight, the very isolation that kept Brianna away from the eyes of neighbors and professionals also left her without the safety net that might have protected her. This invisibility would become a critical factor in what unfolded. Stephanie Lopez, Brianna's mother, was just 19 years old at the time. She had no steady job and lived a life marked by instability. Her relationship with Andrew Walters, Brianna's father, was known to be turbulent, often strained by arguments and financial challenges. Neighbors and acquaintances described Stephanie as distant, rarely seen outside, and largely disconnected from those beyond the walls of the home. Andrew Walters was 21 and, like Stephanie, unemployed. He struggled with alcohol use and had a reputation for short temper and impulsive behavior. Andrew was often seen as the dominant personality in the household, someone whose voice carried weight in family decisions. This dynamic, combined with his frequent drinking, created a volatile environment where others were hesitant to challenge him. Also living in the home was Stephen Lopez, Stephanie's twin brother. Stephen was close to Andrew and the two spent much of their time together. Stephen's presence added another layer of complexity to the household dynamic. He too was without work and contributed little stability. His alignment with Andrew meant that decisions and actions often went unquestioned, leaving little room for outside influence or dissent within the family. Patricia Walters, Andrew's mother and Brianna's grandmother, also resided in the home. She helped with childcare, but was reluctant to intervene when she noticed troubling behaviors. Patricia's unwillingness to confront or question Andrew and Stephanie further cemented an environment where serious issues could be ignored or overlooked. This silence was critical. It allowed patterns of harm to continue without outside scrutiny. The household's isolation made it nearly invisible to the broader community. There were few visitors and family members rarely interacted with neighbors. With no daycare, school, or frequent doctor visits bringing Brianna into public view, there were few opportunities for anyone to notice that something might be wrong. This environment, marked by unemployment, alcohol use, strained relationships, and silence, allowed concerning behavior to remain behind closed doors. It was a setting where harmful patterns could persist unchecked without intervention from those who might otherwise have stepped in. In the weeks leading up to the incident, the pattern of harm toward Brianna became alarmingly consistent. Those inside the home later admitted that Andrew Walters, Brianna's father, and Stephen Lopez, her uncle, would toss her into the air repeatedly as a form of rough play. On multiple occasions, she was tossed into the air during rough play, sometimes landing in ways that could cause serious head injury. These acts were not isolated. They occurred often enough that other members of the household, including Stephanie Lopez, Brianna's mother, witnessed them. Stephanie reportedly told Andrew and Stephen to stop when she saw this happening, but beyond verbal warnings, she did not take further steps to remove Brianna from the situation or seek outside help. This unwillingness to act decisively meant that the behavior continued unchecked. Inside the home, there was a culture of silence. No one called for assistance, and no one reported what was happening. From the outside, the household appeared quiet and unremarkable. Neighbors rarely saw the children, and visits from extended family were infrequent. Brianna did not attend daycare or other settings where adults outside the home might have noticed injuries or concerning signs. The lack of visibility left her isolated from those who could have intervened. Later, medical findings confirmed what had been occurring during those weeks. Examiners discovered evidence of injuries that had occurred at different times, showing that Brianna had suffered harm on multiple occasions. These included fractures to her ribs and skull, along with other unexplained marks. None of these injuries had been reported, and no professional had been given the opportunity to assess her condition prior to the final events. The weeks leading up to Brianna's passing painted a clear picture of a child trapped in a situation from which she had no escape. There were no teachers, doctors, or caregivers regularly interacting with her. No one on the outside raising concerns, and those inside the home remained silent. This lack of intervention allowed a dangerous environment to persist until it was too late. What investigators discovered about the days before Brianna's death would change how the case was seen forever. If this already feels important, please subscribe now, because what comes next is critical for understanding how we protect children. July 19, 2002 began like any other quiet morning in the Lopez-Walters household. But by mid-morning it would become the focus of a full-scale investigation. At approximately 10 o'clock a.m., Stephanie Lopez, Brianna's mother, placed a call to 911 reporting that her 5-month-old daughter was unresponsive. According to the recorded call, Stephanie told dispatchers that Brianna had suffered a fall from her crib and was no longer breathing. Emergency responders arrived within minutes. What they found did not match the account they had been given. Brianna was quickly transported to the nearest medical facility where doctors and nurses attempted life-saving measures, but she was pronounced passed away shortly after 11 o'clock a.m. The explanation of a simple crib fall immediately raised questions for both medical staff and law enforcement. First responders observed that Brianna's condition did not match the type of injury one would expect from a short fall. There were noticeable injuries in various locations on her body, some that appeared to be older and others that seemed more recent. Medical professionals quickly recognized that these injuries were inconsistent with the story they had been told. The inconsistency in the timeline also drew concern. Investigators noted the gap between the time Brianna was last known to be well and the time emergency services were called. Stephanie told officers that she had discovered Brianna unresponsive after waking up that morning. Andrew Walters, Brianna's father, was present at the home when first responders arrived, but did not offer additional details that could clarify the timeline. As the day progressed, law enforcement secured the home as a potential crime scene. The narrative of a single accident did not align with the evidence before them. Investigators began photographing the scene and documenting their observations, focusing on areas around Brianna's crib and other parts of the mobile home where she had been cared for. The injuries documented by medical staff and investigators would later become central to the case. They showed a clear pattern suggesting that harm had occurred on more than one occasion and over a period of time. The explanation of a solitary fall from a crib could not account for the number, placement, and varying ages of the injuries observed. This discovery was a pivotal moment. It shifted the focus of the investigation from an isolated household accident to the likelihood of a sustained pattern of harm that no one outside the home had recognized. Investigators knew that uncovering the truth behind what happened on July 19th would be the key to understanding how Brianna's life had come to such a tragic end. Detectives immediately separated everyone in the home for individual questioning to prevent their accounts from aligning. Stephanie Lopez, Brianna's mother, was the first to be interviewed. She told investigators she had been asleep for most of the night and morning, claiming she was unaware of anything unusual until she discovered Brianna unresponsive. Her responses were hesitant and vague, and she offered no explanation for the injuries that were clearly visible to medical staff and law enforcement. Andrew Walters, Brianna's father, was next. Under pressure, Andrew admitted that he and Stephen Lopez, Brianna's uncle, often engaged in what they called rough play with Brianna. He acknowledged that they would toss her into the air, sometimes struggling to catch her properly. He insisted it was never meant to harm her, but his description of events immediately raised red flags for investigators. Stephen Lopez, interviewed separately, eventually corroborated Andrew's admissions. He admitted to participating in the same behavior and confirmed that Stephanie had seen it at least once. According to Stephen, she told them to stop but took no further steps to protect Brianna or remove her from danger. Detectives noted that these accounts painted a clear picture of a child left unprotected in her own home. Patricia Walters, Brianna's grandmother, also admitted she was aware of troubling behavior, but claimed she had avoided intervening because she did not want to create more conflict within the household. This revelation reinforced investigators' growing understanding that silence from those who might have acted had allowed the situation to escalate unchecked. While interviews were underway, forensic evidence provided even more crucial details. The medical examiner's autopsy determined that Brianna's passing was caused by severe head injuries. Internal bleeding was discovered along with multiple rib and limb fractures at different stages of healing, confirming that Brianna had experienced harm over a period of time. Additional signs of mistreatment were documented, and the examination also revealed evidence of acts of a sexual nature. The injuries catalogued by forensic pathologists confirmed what investigators were beginning to suspect. This was not a single tragic accident, but an ongoing pattern of harm that had been hidden behind closed doors. The fact that Brianna had no consistent contact with doctors, teachers, or daycare providers meant there were no outside eyes on her well-being. Neighbors rarely saw her, and extended family visits were infrequent, leaving no opportunities for anyone to raise alarms. These findings shifted the investigation into a criminal case with undeniable momentum. The combination of interviews and forensic results left detectives with a clear and harrowing picture of what Brianna had endured in her short life. It was now evident that the very people entrusted with her care had failed her in every possible way. The evidence investigators uncovered now left no doubt about what had taken place. But taking this case into the courtroom would reveal even more about how the system around Brianna had missed the warning signs, and how those failures would become a central part of the fight for justice. The weight of the evidence uncovered during the investigation and autopsy made it impossible for prosecutors to treat the case as anything other than deliberate and ongoing harm. Arrest warrants were swiftly issued for those directly involved. Andrew Walters, Brianna's father, faced the most serious charges. Prosecutors accused him of severe harm leading to Brianna's passing, conspiracy, and conduct that was sexual in nature. His conduct over an extended period and his role as a parent intensified the charges. In court, the evidence against Andrew was overwhelming. Witness statements, forensic findings, and his own admissions about the so-called rough play painted a grim picture. He was ultimately sentenced to 63 years in prison. Stephen Lopez, Brianna's uncle, faced similar charges. He too was accused of participating in actions that caused harm and of allowing the dangerous environment to persist. Stephen was found guilty of multiple charges, including serious criminal acts of a sexual nature and severe harm that led to Brianna's passing. He was sentenced to 57 years in prison. Stephanie Lopez, Brianna's mother, was charged with negligently allowing the harm that led to her daughter's passing. Prosecutors argued that she had multiple opportunities to intervene but failed to act, leaving Brianna unprotected. Stephanie was convicted and sentenced to 27 years in prison. She later served 13 years before being released early in 2016 under supervision, a decision that sparked renewed outrage from the community. Patricia Walters, Brianna's grandmother, and Robert Walters, Jr., another relative in the home, faced lesser charges for failing to report what they knew. They were each sentenced to just 60 days in jail. These sentences reflected the varying levels of involvement, but for many, they felt far from adequate. The community's frustration only grew as the case moved into the appeals phase. Stephanie Lopez's legal team appealed her conviction, arguing that a procedural issue known as a confrontation clause violation had tainted the trial. The New Mexico Supreme Court reviewed the case and ultimately remanded it for retrial, though Stephanie remained convicted and incarcerated at the time. Andrew Walters and Stephen Lopez also pursued appeals, but their convictions and lengthy sentences were upheld. The anger surrounding the case reached the state legislature, where lawmakers introduced and passed Baby Brianna's Law in 2007. This law mandated life sentences for those convicted in cases where a child under the age of 13 lost their life due to severe harm, ensuring that future cases would carry the most serious penalties available. This case became a rallying point for child advocacy groups and the broader public. It underscored the gaps in the system and the devastating consequences when children are left unseen and unheard. Public campaigns pushed for tougher sentencing laws, greater accountability for those who ignore warning signs, and improved mechanisms for child protection services. This case reshaped laws, but change doesn't stop in the courtroom. If you believe in protecting children, please like and share this video. Your support helps us keep these conversations going and ensures that children like Brianna are never forgotten. The community's reaction following the outcome of the case was immediate and deeply emotional. News of the circumstances surrounding Brianna's passing spread quickly, and with it came anger and heartbreak. Many in Los Cruces were disturbed to learn that Brianna's grave had been left unmarked and surrounded by a metal cage at the family's request. To many, it felt like yet another effort to erase her existence and keep her story hidden from the public eye. Members of the community, determined to honor Brianna's life, began to leave flowers, stuffed animals, and handwritten notes at the gravesite. The cage did little to deter these visits. Hundreds of people, some traveling from outside the area, came to pay their respects, placing tributes through the openings in the fence. What began as individual acts of remembrance quickly grew into a movement demanding a permanent memorial. The Remember Me Foundation, a local nonprofit advocating for victims of child harm, stepped in and petitioned to have the cage removed and a memorial bench installed at Brianna's resting place. Despite initial resistance from some family members, the effort succeeded. A bench with Brianna's name was placed at the site, offering a peaceful place for mourners to sit and reflect. Community action ensured Brianna's story would not be erased. That same awareness can protect other children. By keeping her memory alive, Las Cruces sent a powerful message. No child should ever be forgotten, and silence should never allow harm to continue unnoticed. This case is a sobering reminder that harm against children can be hidden even by those who appear to be their greatest protectors. It is crucial for communities to stay vigilant and aware. Something as simple as checking in with children and families can make a difference. If a child seems withdrawn or fearful, or if there are sudden changes in their behavior, it's important to ask questions and offer support. Prevention starts with knowledge, and knowledge begins with awareness. Many children experiencing harm often do not or cannot speak out for themselves. That's why it is critical for the adults and community members around them to recognize the subtle and sometimes not so subtle signs that something is wrong. Understanding these indicators can truly be life-saving. Beyond unexplained injuries or chronic absence from school, there are often behavioral and emotional signals. A child who was once outgoing may suddenly become withdrawn or unusually anxious. Others might display extreme behaviors such as aggression or fearfulness that seem out of character. Young children may show knowledge of things they should not know for their age or exhibit clinginess toward certain adults while avoiding others. Physical signs can also be revealing. Children who consistently appear unkempt, tired, or hungry may be living in neglectful conditions. Wearing the same dirty clothes repeatedly or having untreated medical or dental issues can be red flags. In older children, frequent running away, skipping school, or associating with unsafe peers can point to deeper problems at home. But recognizing these signs is only the first step. Taking action is what saves lives. Authorities and child protection agencies rely on the public to come forward when something doesn't seem right. This might mean calling a local child welfare hotline, alerting a teacher or school counselor, or even speaking to law enforcement. You do not need absolute proof to report a concern. A single call could trigger an investigation and open the door to support for a child who desperately needs it. It's also important to remember that these systems work best when communities work together. Teachers, doctors, neighbors, and relatives are often the first line of defense, but anyone can play a role. Sometimes even small gestures, asking a child how they are, building trust, and showing care can make a child feel safe enough to disclose what's happening to them. Speaking up even when unsure can save a life. It is far better to raise a concern that turns out to be unfounded than to remain silent and risk the safety of a child. As Brianna's case shows, harm can continue unnoticed when no one takes that crucial step. By staying informed, alert, and willing to act, communities can break the cycle of silence and ensure that vulnerable children are seen, heard, and protected. Brianna Lopez's short life left a lasting impact on New Mexico and beyond. She inspired changes in the law and brought attention to the importance of reporting concerns. Her story serves as a call to action for all of us to protect children in our communities. Brianna deserved safety, love, and a chance to grow up. Though we cannot change the past, we can ensure her legacy brings awareness and action. Today's story is a reminder that safety and vigilance are essential in protecting ourselves and our loved ones. If you found this information valuable, please share this video to help raise awareness. Don't forget to subscribe so we can continue sharing important stories and lessons together. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.